organization and focus on an organization that would focus on our schools, because remember, our vision was not a great school system, but a system comprised of great schools. And the core pillars that I've discussed at length and learned a lot about from your mayor, are leadership, empowerment, and accountability. A school that doesn't have the right principal will not succeed. Principals who are micromanaged by the bureaucracy are not the people you want to lead schools. Great leaders want degrees of freedom and flexibility. And they also want to be held accountable. Empowering people and not holding them accountable is prescription for real failure. So those three core notions, school leadership, who are empowered and accountable, are at the heart of our reforms. First thing we did, first major reform, was to create a leadership training program. We now train up some 60 to 70 new principals, not people that the bureaucracy typically would identify, but people who we think are real change agents. Rigorous screening. We invest $150,000 to $200,000 a year on those people. We assign them to the most challenging neighborhoods in our city, either to do transformational work or to start a new school. We've been doing this now for the last several years. We've trained up over 300 of these leaders, many of whom are really setting remarkable records in overall accomplishment and performance. But we revere and respect and are unafraid to revere and respect great leaders in the New York City public school system. Second thing we did is to devolve significant discretion to school leaders and their teams over budget, over hiring, and over programs. We stopped trying to micromanage the school and let the school community decide which ways. And that way you learn, you create a dynamic, innovative environment, and the people feel ownership who are responsible for the outcomes. We replaced a homogeneous bureaucracy. Nobody else has done this. And we created networks of schools where the schools opt into the network. And they work together with a support organization that helps them, supports them, gets them to navigate the systems, gets them the teacher prep that they need, and so on. So instead of a homogeneous bureaucracy, we differentiate. Next thing we did is literally cut the central and field bureaucracy in half from $1.2 billion to $600 million, took that money and put it in the schools where it belongs, and as a result of that, shifted the role of the bureaucracy. And the last thing we do is I ask everybody outside the schools to focus on what are you doing to support student achievement inside the schools, because that's where student achievement takes place. And I survey our principals twice a year to ask about what every sector of the bureaucracy does and how well it's being done in terms of servicing the needs of the schools. And I use that survey to do real performance management in the bureaucracy. And when I see parts of the bureaucracy that are getting low grades from our principals, we have 1,600 principals, about 1,300 fill out every one of these surveys. I use that to demand changes in the system, because if you're not supporting our schools, then my question is, what precisely are you doing? Let me go back. So now I told you the whole system is built on a backbone of accountability. And I want to say that we use accountability not just in terms of rewards and consequences, but in terms of improvement. So in colloquial terms, accountability can be both a sledgehammer and it can be a spotlight to show people how to make the system move forward and improve. I'll talk briefly about, we have at the bottom our federal standard of accountability, which we all have to meet, and that's based largely on 3 to 8 test scores and on high school graduation rates, and that's our state and federal evaluations here, NCLB. But we didn't find this adequate. We found it too blunt an instrument. We developed 3 instruments of our own. Most important is our progress report, and I'll come back to that in a second, quality review, and school surveys. The surveys you're familiar with, we take parent, teacher, and student surveys, and every year we ask parents, teachers, and students lots of operational questions. We get 400,000 parents respond to these surveys out of 1 million parents in our school system each year. So we're talking about large return rates, and we make this all public and put it online, asking about not just how well the school is doing, but communications with parents, engagement with parents, safety, enrichment programs and other things. We do a site visit and spend a couple of days with outside reviewers looking at the way a school does its work, whether it uses data to inform its instructional mission, how it does professional development for its teachers, how it sets goals, how it aligns resources with goals, and we publish those reports. And then most of all, we have our progress reports. And this, trust me, is controversial. What we look at is not just how well a school performs, but how much progress it makes. If you compare a school in an affluent community with a school in a high-poverty community, you're going to get different absolute results. But if you compare 10 schools in a high-poverty community that start in the same place but move forward based on year-to-year tests that are administered by our state, you can measure progress and differentiate. And there's so much power in our ability to do that. So on our progress report, the first 15 points out of 100 are basically for school environment. 10 of that is on the survey, 5 on attendance. Then student performance, overall performance, 25 points. And the last 60 points, and clearly the heart of this system, is progress, comparing apples to apples. Schools are put in cohorts of 40. That's called their horizon schools. We can tell which ones are making real progress, which ones aren't. And you can see this one's about 36 out of 60. Probably the top one would be about 58 or 59 out of 60. And then we give additional credit for how you do with our highest needs kids, our English language learners, special ed, lowest performing kids, so you can actually exceed 100 points. And here are the score ranges. And as I said, it rolls up into a letter grade as well as these subgrades. We publish this, we put it online. Any parent who wants to know about it, there's 3 other pages that come behind this that disaggregate, show you some of the comparisons, lots and lots of detail. But parents in our city have those 3 accountability reports, as well as word of mouth, as well as the ability to visit schools, and those data drive the system. First year we did this, 60 different principals called me and said, this is not right, we're in the wrong cohort, it's unfair, and I had to listen to every one of them. But every single one of them said, I'll promise you this, Chancellor, whatever's wrong, next year I won't get an F, or next year I won't get a D. It's created a rising tide for people to drive progress in the system. Now, as I said before, it's not just about the letter, it's about how you create a system that enables you to drive progress. So we've created what I believe is the most sophisticated data system in the entire United States in K-12 education. We call it the Achievement Reporting and Innovation System. And it has 3 core components, and I was talking in here about this before. I would love to help you get this established here. It's massive. All of our parents have access to it about their own child. All of our schools have access to it about their classes, their children, their schools, other schools. And we've created what we call ARIS Connect, which is a way for teachers and schools to learn from each other. So for a parent, you can get lots of information about your kid, how he's done on our periodic assessment. We don't wait till the end of the year. We give 5 periodic assessments in various subjects, predictive assessments. We differentiate where a kid is strong and where she needs a lot of work, and our teachers work together to figure out how to move to get these kids forward. We put them in what we call inquiry teams, and they work collectively with the data. I'll show you in a second the kind of report they get, but they can get all the information about a kid. So if they want to know who his kindergarten teacher was, they've got her email address. You just click on it, and you can contact her about what's happening with Johnny or Alyssa. And we produce lots of reports that we produce for them to look at, and as well, they produce their own reports.